Hi, everybody. Happy Pride Month. Woohoo! The Los Angeles Poet Society is in the house. We're having our Pride celebration. We've been having lots of events all month long, from takeovers of our Instagram to celebrating our book, Acid Verse, Queer Uprising. And we have amazing poets in the house today, Andres Sanchez and Verónica Reyes. And we're gonna have a Q&A, and we're gonna have a reading from their selected works. So for those of you tuning in on Facebook, hello. And thank you to everyone viewing and sharing some time with us today. So we're gonna have, I'm gonna intro each of the authors, and they're gonna read up to a 20-minute excerpt from their work, and then we'll have Q&A. So if any of you, either on Facebook or anybody here on Zoom, wants to ask a question, go ahead and type it in the comment box or in the chat box, and then I'll moderate and I'll ask our guests today. So yes, I can't believe it. We're here. We are getting through this whole pandemic madness and slowly trickling out into the world again, or at least in Los Angeles County again. I don't know if we want to go everywhere yet, but baby steps. But it's a real pleasure to have you both here, Andres and Veronica. I'm a big fan of your work. Both of you have been just amazing and honest in your poetry, and I can't wait for everybody to hear you. So let's see. I'm gonna do a coin toss. Let's see. Do I have a coin toss? Well, I don't really have a coin, but we'll call this side V and this side A, and then whichever side it flips on is the side that it's gonna read. All right, let's see. Oh, Andres, you're up first. So let me share. I'm gonna do a screen share. Hopefully this works out. I've never been a Mac gal before, so I have this new, a Mac, and I'm like, dude, I don't know how to navigate everything yet, so forgive me. But here we go. So Andres is celebrating a new book. Or actually, I believe it came out in 2020. It's a pandemic survivor book, which we can't celebrate enough of, because all those folks that got published in 2020, do-over, this is the redo part 2 year. So, tour it, talk about it, sell it, support it. Andres is published with World Stage Press. Their book is titled This Body. And this is it here. This body is a compilation of poems about my personal coming out story as a queer trans person of color. This book takes you on a journey of learning to find self-love and healing while navigating turbulent family relationships, failed romantic connections, and coping through the struggles on mental health and substance abuse. Like I was saying, it's so raw, it's honest, and I mean, I was trying to get a copy last night, actually, at CLI, the community. I'm sorry, not at CLI, at the Sims Library of Poetry. Duh, I'm only wearing a shirt from there. But it's all together. The World Stage existed first, and then World Stage Press, and then CLI, and this Sims Library of Poetry. So big love to Hiram Sims for that vision, and everybody. As he said yesterday, it's the we that brought it all together. So really amazing. And so that's their book. Let's see, I was looking for your bio. Here we go. I think if I just click on here, or do they have a bio of you on here?
They probably don't have a bio on me. I think they just have the summary of the book there. It's okay though.
I thought I was clever.
No, you're good.
Well, I remember, I'm gonna take it back a little bit, but I remember meeting Andy in a group called the Lunas Locas in East Los, over in El Sereno, actually. And yes. I was just in community with them and writing and exploring and trying to understand our, just life and our place in it and everything. And I remember our retreat that we had, and just that experience out in the mountains, and I just you're part of my family, and I'm so excited that your book got to happen, because I remember, being part of that writing at least a little speckle of that writing journey for you. And so I'm so proud of you. And what an awesome, I have to get a copy. I was like, I really was trying to buy, asking God, I was like, where's Andy's book?
I think they ran out of copies at the library and to order new ones.
There you go.
So that's pretty exciting that they, you know, the initial copies, the initial run that was ordered, I think sold out at this point.
Wow, that's wonderful news.
Yeah, and it's just been it's been a journey through all of it, just learning about, you know, the book production process, how to put your, you know, your work out there, you know, participate in a lot of these open mics or opportunities for all of that. So yeah. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and share my work.
I'm so happy that you could be here with us today. And also, I mean, this is trans truth, like just raw, all out there. And so I feel like so many folks can connect with it, because I don't feel like there's enough literature on that, you know, just folks going through it and just what you're feeling, you know. And that title is perfect. But I'm gonna go ahead and pass it over to you. So you have up 20 minutes, and it's all you. I'm gonna stop screen sharing.
All right, thank you.
But everyone, put your snaps up for Andres Sanchez.
Thank you. So I want to start off by sharing a little bit about just the writing journey alone. I think it's important to highlight a little bit of where, Jessica talked a little bit about, Las Lunas Locas, which is where a lot of my initial writing took place. And I think it's important to mention that because I was in a very raw space at that time when I joined that group. And that group gave me an opportunity to really start writing again. I had stopped writing for a really long time. And I think, I don't know if it's just like something that happened along the way because of all the things that I had going on. But I went back to that space of writing. And then a couple of years after I joined the group, I applied for the Community Literature Initiative program. So it's a 10-month program that supports folks that want to publish. And so you go through this program, you get an opportunity to be heard by presses, which is where I saw Jessica last night, the author draft. And so and it's also, you receive your book in your hand at the end of the day, and it's like the most surreal experience to see these 10 months of work just put into a binded a binded book and a cover and all of these different things that are part of the process of publication. And then luckily enough, so Hiram Sims, who leads CLI and also oversees the Sims Library of Poetry and World Stage Press, he gave me an opportunity to be able to teach for the program this year. And so I've been focused on putting through a group of 15 students that were going through the program in 2 different cohorts. So it's we had some folks start in September, and then we had the other cohort of students start in January. So essentially, I had 2 cohorts kind of going through the program at the same time. And it was such a rewarding experience to see their progress, right, from when they started originally until they ended the program, and they did the presentations last night. And so, going into another layer of what writing is. So I wanted to mention that because it was last night felt really good for me as like an instructor, being there, witnessing folks really going through, all of the writing piece, right? Because it comes with a lot of emotional labor, which is what I went through when I wrote my book. And it really talks about, essentially the summary. It's what it is. I went into the program thinking I would write a book of love stories or like heartbreak stories, but it's part of that. But I think it turned into a lot of other things as well. A lot of self-exploration. And I started the program at the same time that I started my transition when I came out as trans a couple of years ago. And so it just kind of, I was able to document the process from the beginning, to what it is now. And that's all kind of, the basis of my book. But I'm gonna stop talking about it, and I wanna read some pieces from it. And I like to start with this piece because I feel like it just kind of gives folks an idea of my background and where I came from. So this piece is called I Am My Roots. At first, I was from the motherland, Frijoles con queso y bolillo raised me. Corn tortillas kept me alive. I'm from where the eagle perched on nopales, green as the mountains the Aztecs called home, white as jicama con chile and limon, red as the blood of my indigenous mothers. I came from maternal abuelos raising me as their own for 2 years, from pan dulce de sweet in the days I mourned the absence of my parents. I came from a temblor del 85 that shook all the fear out of me, for my weekly shots recommended for my fragile anemic body at 4, for my first crush on the neighbor across the street, from my life on techos and macetas hanging in my grandmother's jardín. I left custom-made baby clothes bought with my mother's work in la tortilleria for secondhand clothes given to my father by his coworkers, traded homemade sopes for cheeseburgers made the American way. Santa Ana raised me for a few years, taught me English, but my mother never let me forget my first language, so I kept the Mexican accent cemented on my tongue. Tustin became my fourth and fifth home. Here, I quickly learned my differences when a white boy used the rock to split my head open. What are you? Where are you from? Became questions I could not answer, even when I felt the drips of blood from my wound. Cali kept my heart always, but I was raised in a city translated from the meadows. Las Vegas blazing desert summers. The rays of the sun seep deep into my skin each day, browning more. Red Rocks became my playground. I wore a cap and gown for the first time in my lineage, repeated again 6 years later. Destiny called. I have never dug a hole deep enough to hold my roots in place. Until now, I've only encountered malnourished soil too soft to hold them down. My 18-year-old sister helped me drive my green Ford SUV back east near the Potomac River, military base and Pentagon were my backyard, the Smithsonian offering free history at my fingertips. Again, hardly any history was mine. None of the apartments that I lived in could hold enough of my sadness, so it overpoured into the streets, made it to my work desk where I embraced my passion for health. I learned to travel, took myself on road trips to escape the isolation, got my first passport, planned trips, made a list of places I wanted to go, then packed my tiny car and watched it get shipped back west. I arrived in the city of angels on March 10th, 2014, with broken heart, but more hope. I learned to become a master, cap and gown now becoming a legacy. Unpacked years of trauma, became my true self, learned my way around the freeways and the neighborhoods, made significant friendships. I still struggle with calling any place home. Pack, unpack, repack, live out of boxes, survive with the lessons from when this journey began. I am temporary, like how my spirit lives in this body temporary. I claim no hood. Like my ancestors, I settle where I can find a warm place to sleep and enough nourishment to guide me through this passage. I am not local. I am seeds in the wind, leaving trees and flowers that eventually turn into beautiful fields near unplanned rest stops along the roads. I am of this world. I am from the earth. All right. So in a quick introduction into who I am. So one of the things that was predominant, kind of like there are several storylines within my book, and one of those things is a lot of the trauma that I endured during all of these different transitions. Um, and a couple of months ago, I had to sit and write, I wanted to sit and reflect about all the places that I lived in. And I came up with 22 addresses where I lived in my lifetime. And so a lot of along the way, a lot of the trauma surfaced and resurfaced, right? And so there were a lot of coping mechanisms that weren't necessarily the healthiest. But I think that we all deal with things depending on how, what we're taught and how we're learned to cope. And so I want to share this piece that's called Coping. Tecate, Bud Light, Corona, Dos X, Budweiser, Pacifico, rum, vodka, tequila, whiskey, escaping, freeing, flying, vanishing, forgetting, disappearing from reality, taking off, running away, getting out of the routine of the hard things that happened at home. No accommodations, no property to call my own, habitation purely for survival. On my way back to an address I have ingrained in my memory, followed by blue and red lights to a place where I've buried the existence of love in this loneliness. Handcuffs I've always worn on my wrists remind me to reevaluate my decisions. Heart full of guilt, tears cannot stop pouring down freckled cheeks. Migrant child, abused, neglected, unloved, grew up faster than wings could develop. A statistic written long before birth, before I became a shameful embarrassment, a body full of discomfort, unbecoming in my ignorant skin. All right. So yeah, so part of the process of putting this book together was really to address and go back to a lot of painful places in my life. And I think it was a way to kind of release a lot of the stuff that was happening or that's happened, and also address those things, right? Find healthier ways and healthier things to cope with all of the stress, with previous trauma, with triggers that may come up for me every now and then. And so when I was going through the program, one of the prompts that we had to write on was to write a letter to ourselves at a younger age. And I picked the age of 17. And I go back to that place because I was a really like angsty teenager. Like I wanted to do all these things. I had a vision for myself of where I wanted to be when I was this, if I was this age now, then, right? And so I wanted to address this 17-year-old angsty teenager who just like had all these visions. And I think part of those visions that I had then, they're happening. So it's good to be in this space. And it's called To the Angst of a 17-year-old. You will get past the awkwardness. You will eventually come out. You will beat all the hardcore odds, finish high school and find your route. You will go and try out college. You will still be a nail biter. You will get your heart broken, but you've always been a tough fighter. You will overcome your traumas. You will face long, hard depression. You will heal your body within and kill the built up aggression. You will love yourself more daily. You will learn to treat yourself well. You will get all of your tattoos, dance the nights away and rebel. You will total one of your cars. You will be very lost all on foot, but you will always find your way home and finally connect to your roots. You will learn to travel the world. You will finally write your book. You will use all that you've learned. Be grateful for all that it took. You will have lovely friendships. You will cheer one another on. You will withstand disappointments because some will choose to be gone. You will have all that you need. You'll have worked through the list of fears. You'll have one mistake to regret, but you've loved yourself through the years. All right. Um, so in this process of transition, this poem actually is the oldest poem in the book, and I started writing this piece in Las Lunas Locas, and it looked very different at the time, and I think it was like the first time where I was like, yeah, like I'm trans, and I admitted that to myself, and it was time to like really address that part of myself and start some action to like be in a better space with my body. And so this next piece is the title of my book called This Body. In this body given to me, I learned to move my limbs, sometimes to the sounds of cumbias from Mexico de Efe, where I was born, sometimes to the sounds of my mother's cries when father would leave to El Norte to follow the American dream. Only I know what I have lived in this body, The passing of the moons witnessed each limb growing into a young adult body. My skin stayed soft in this body, no facial hair growing on this body, instead painful breasts growing on this body, no limb between my legs attached to this body, instead womanhood expelled from this body. I've questioned my happiness in this body. I've prayed, I've cried because I want this body to be a masculine body. I want to be described as handsome in this body. I've dreamt of a safer place for this body that I've yet to find. I know there is something bigger than the memory of this dispossessed body. Bone and flesh are weak because of the heartbreak past lovers have caused that I don't know when I began to carry them instead of me in this body. I've learned to be loved in this body, feel what it's like to be touched, but I'm not sure what it means because I cannot weigh myself in this body. I'm ready to take back my beautiful body. I want to feel again in my body. I want to breathe love through my body. I want my body, my feminine but masculine body wrapped up into blissful perfection. Thank you. I'll end on this piece. And it's a more recent piece that I wrote probably in the last year or so. And I was visiting a friend who was going through like a lot of, she was going through a breakup or several breakups at the same time. And just kind of witnessing that also made me reflect a little bit on my own coping mechanisms around like being in relationships and kind of the unhealthy ways that I coped with when those relationships ended. And so I wrote this piece kind of merging both her and my experience together. And it's called If Love Had Direction. You re-traumatize yourself with the words of lovers lost, begin to doubt your own ability to love them. Love you when all that's left are hurtful words, when the empty of your ribcage wants to feel your heart pump again. You have been searching for so long, forgot what it feels like to love in your own beauty, to pour love in your own pain, to find joy, to love your scars, revisit them, then never turn back. Instead, you love here in the shadows of what love isn't. Half-assed love is still blind to the need for healing, the need to feel your heart rebuilding itself unbroken. Instead, you shed tears. You want love to return, but maybe love was never there. So you still go looking for what you never found in the first place. Find new ways to punish your mischievous demons. Love, you are sun's rays if you only knew how to face east in the mornings. You are a wild moon with direction and purpose. Fail to see how goddesses should never learn to hide behind mirrors, behind the reflections of what lovers want you to be for them, how they want you to love them, how they want you to see them before you even get a chance to see yourself. It is hard to see yourself when pain is everything you know, when trauma is everything you see, when cycle is how you've learned to live and love, when you've entangled yourself in so many directions that you cannot find the end of the rope, when you've been left with blisters on the tips of your fingers from trying. Love, you are warmth in early summer if you only knew how to let the breeze kiss your lips. You are the grapevine full of poppies in the spring, a sight everyone wants to see, but only a few know how to truly admire. So they pass you up. They watch with fire in their eyes, ride your curves, lick the sweetness of your charm, embellish their love for what they see on the outside, but never want to walk in your fields, don't know how to caress your flowers gently, so they devour you whole, forget that you ever needed water. They suffocate you, watch your bloom die before it's time. Before them, there was me. Before me, there were others. Before others, maybe there was you. And maybe you got lost somewhere before you knew who you were. Love, I cannot show you what you do not choose to see. I cannot teach you how to love the beauty in yourself. Thank you.
That was so incredible. It just so like you like the rib cage, like you say, taking it out. You're like, boom, here is the heart, the corazón right on your book, literally. My gosh, I love it. I love the honesty and just the dedication you have to yourself to process and transcribe and remember. And like, you know, a lot of times I know in my own writing, it takes like all the senses, you know, you have to recall all 5 senses to be back in that moment to like really get everything or extract as much as you can. So it's like, I saw the courage you have. And I can't wait to get my hands on this book, but I love your poetry and everything that you presented too today from Partners. I love what you said about loving your scars and the love letter to, you know, the letter to yourself, your younger self. And I think those are all amazing ways, you know, to, I guess, just appreciate, even though how painful it is, but the journey that brought you to who you are and where you are, where you got to be 100% who you are, you know, that's everything, you know. And gosh,
it was hard to unpack, you know, like I don't want to go into it too much time. We're gonna have the Q&A, but it was hard to unpack, but I think it was important to unpack that those pieces of myself, because I feel like they were just kind of getting stuck in like almost like a time warp, right? Where it's like they go back, they come, they stay there, they don't really, it's kind of just all there. And it felt so much lighter just releasing all of it. It's a hard read. And I make that note at the beginning of the book in the introduction of like, if you need to take space to step back from these things, like it's okay, because it's a lot. And it's a lot for me to like, right, to sometimes like read, like I have to prep myself to go back to these spaces. And one of the things that I used as part of the writing process was that when I wrote about these situations, I went back to those spaces to revisit exactly like what the details were. But yeah, so thank you.
Yeah, wow. Even like harder snaps right there. Seriously, because you really, I was talking about the senses, but you're like, I'm going there. I gotta see it, feel it, smell it, like really, gosh, yeah, that's courageous. And yeah, I can't wait. I have some questions. I'm writing some questions here, and I'm checking if anybody wants to ask questions to our authors today. We're celebrating Pride, woo-woo. And you know, we're highlighting some amazing queer authors, writers in our community in Los Angeles. And just, you know, if you have any questions, feel free to comment in our Facebook Live or here in the chat, and I'm happy to moderate the questions on your behalf or ask on your behalf. Okay, thank you so much, Andy. Let's give some more snaps and love to Andy, Andres Sanchez. Woo! I'll put the link in the chat there of where they can order your book, or where would you prefer folks to order or support your work?
Yeah, directly on the press's website. That's where you can order the book. Yeah, unfortunately I ran out of books that were given to me to sell as well. And then I think they're all out. So that's the only spot right now. I plan to order some soon, but yeah, thank you.
Great. I just put the link in there. And if you're listening on Facebook, y'all, it's worldstagepress.org. You click on product and This Body by Andres Sanchez. And then the link is in the chat. So here in the Zoom. All right. Thank you everyone who's tuning in and joining us today. And who's here in the Zoom land with me, with the LA Poet Society. I'm really excited to introduce our next author, Verónica Reyes. Oh my gosh, we go back. I don't even know how long, but it's all good. I love this sister.
Go back to Beyond Baroque.
Back to Beyond Baroque. But that's a while ago. I want to say like 2012-ish or some around there. Yeah, and you're a favorite of mine, your books, your writing. And I think, you know, for me personally, like, I think you were one of the first people I heard that were just like straight up, like just the way you, like your poems are just like, just the way you want to say it, the way you talk, you let it out and it packs a punch. And I'm just like, oh, I love this woman. She's amazing. Seriously, I've always been a fan of yours, and I've told you this before, that I teach youth, and I always, I go back to your book, Chopper Chopper, and especially the bus poem. Oh my gosh, such a great poem. And but definitely feel free to share. You have up to 20 minutes to share from any of your books or any of your writing. Doesn't, whatever you would like to share. But oh my goodness, everyone, Verónica Reyes is incredible. So let me introduce you. I did find your bio on Poets and Writers, pretty handy. So everybody, again, this is Andy's book. If you want to support, get this body, you gotta get it. You gotta get it, and you have to share it. I think it's so important. It's so important. I mean, I want to know more trans authors, but I feel like there's not Andy, well, I'll ask you that question. Like, who are the other trans authors that folks can, and I want to talk about resources as well. But, again, your work is honest, Andy, and just so many, I think people need to read it. People need to read it. Wherever they are on the spectrum, just, I think it's so important, the more that we communicate and share community and just listen to each other, the more we can advocate for each other and be there, and also just break all those barriers that colonialism has placed and all that stuff. So but yeah, everybody get this book. Okay, so we're gonna move over to Verónica. Yay! All right, so Verónica, here she is. She's here on the Poets and Writer directory. And big love to Poets and Writers. They've been a great supporter of LA Poet Society. We love you, Jamie and Brandy and everybody. All right, so Verónica is the author of Chopper Chopper, Poetry from Borderlands, from Artkoi Books, which is an imprint of Red Hen Press. She is a Chicana feminist marimacha from East Los Angeles. Yeah, East Los. Growing up near the 710 freeway, she's the youngest daughter of Natividad Avalos Reyes and Julia Socorro Hernandez Reyes. From El Barrio, she is a proud alumni from Hamel Street School, Belvedere Junior High School, and Garfield High. Yeah, my mom was a Garfield High grad too. Yes. As a first-generation student, she is grateful to the Educational Opportunity Program. Reyes earned her BA from California State University, Long Beach, LBC in the house, and an MFA, yes, from University of Texas, El Paso. Congratulations, all that education. For Reyes, East LA is her corazón. Yes, El Paso, Texas taught her the beautifully intense desert life on the border. Toronto, Canada opened her experience to Latinx outside the US. I would love to experience that too, actually. I hadn't got to experience that. Over the years, she has lived abroad in Birmingham, UK, Bavia, Italy, and Berlin, Germany. As an educator, part-time lecturer, she has worked at El Paso Community College, Rio Grande and Valle Verde campuses, and Humber College. Presently, or at the time of this bio, she is faculty in the Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies program and Department of English at Cal State LA. Is that still on target?
Well, the English department, I don't teach in WGSS anymore.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you're okay, great. But so she's a profe at Cal State LA, the Department of English. Woo! That's one of my dreams. Like, I want to be a profe one of these days. Her poetry shares the lives of her communities, Mexican American, brown queers, immigrants, Latinx, and La Joteria. It contributes to the growing narrative of Chicanx literature. Reyes is the East LA poet. Oh yes, I love it. I'm from East Los. My hospital doesn't even exist anymore. Over on Soto, that thing is it's just dirt. But she won the Lambda, I believe, right? Or in the 2014 or finalist. So you can let's see, where's there? You can go to Red Hand and check for her book, but also I know I saw it on Amazon también. I was just trying to show the press. But yes, here, let me show your book. This is a terrific book, and it never gets old. I could read it and read it and read it and read it. Here we go. You're gonna see my note from Amazon. There's a billing issue, miss. What are they talking about? Anyway, but here's her libro. So yeah, you can check her up on Amazon, or if there's a preferred way, you know, Veronica, we can talk, you know, you can let me know where you prefer for folks to support. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop my screen sharing. And I'm gonna pass it over to you, Veronica. I'm so excited that you're here with us today, and I'm just gonna be listening. I can't wait. It's a treat to see you, and anytime to hang with you is a good time.
All right, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you, of course, for inviting me, and of course, happy Pride. And it's nice to be doing a reading. Actually, I haven't done a reading in a few months, I don't think I've ever done a Pride reading, really. So it's an honor to be reading with Andres, right? Beautiful work, amazing work there. And of course, I plan to get that book too as well. I'm gonna start straight up, of course, from the Chopper, Poetry from Border Lives. This is a poem that I wrote in El Paso. Praise the word, Audre Lorde is still alive. I'm telling you, man, I'm telling you, Audre Lorde is still alive. Who would ever thought she lived here, right smack on 300 West Schuster by Mesa in the Williamsburg apartment, second floor? Audre Lorde lives in El Paso, Texas. Who'd ever thought to look here down at the border under this desert sun? But I've seen her in the laundromats, singing the blues a cappella, shrouded in steam. Sister, sister, I see many blue skies. I spied on her peeking in through the window, listening to her sweet voice embrace each note. Yep, I've seen her here in this border town. I know, you wouldn't believe it, but she's living down here in the red brick courtyard. It was like, there she was. Audre, girlfriend, you're alive and well, I see. Thank you. The homegirl from New York via the islands is back. She's been hiding out beneath the Franklin Mountains, writing, sketching new poems and autobiography to be published forthcoming in La Mera Mera Marimacha Press. She's been hiding near the green cactus with the fat red tunas. I'm telling you, I saw her under the blue frontera sky. Audre Lorde is still alive. Thank La Diosa Almighty. She passed me down the stairs with her chingona stride, and lucky me, she even nodded her head up to me, said hello with Fight the Power, vibrating in between. I knew it was her with her strut and kick-ass voice. It had to be Audre Lorde rejuvenated for El Pleito, the war on dikes, the guerra a mujeres. She never left us. She's been here all along. I'm telling you, Audre Lorde is still alive. She's down here near the Rio Grande, waiting her time to come back to us and spread the word. Poetry is political. Love thy dyke like me. Right now she's hiding. You know, she's keeping it low, and in between she's singing while folding her clothes. I'm telling you, Audre Lorde is still alive. Woohoo! So yeah, okay, I'm just gonna go straight up reading poems and so forth. I like to read this one too. Oh, glad to know that you're higher than La Diosa. Marimacha. So when I first wrote Marimacha at UTEP, I thought I was gonna write about an academic Chicana butch dyke walking down, or like on Whittier Boulevard in East LA. And as I started writing this piece, I began to realize I know nothing at the time to what I meant to be an academic. And this is the poem that came to exist, Marimacha. She strutted down Whittier Boulevard, checking out the rucas on the calle, a bien suave Chicana butch dyke. Hair slicked back with tres flores, glistening against her earth tone skin, cut off khakis right at the knees, smooth crease down the pant legs, starch white camisa over an undershirt, Fruit of the Looms, a true homeboy's brand bought at JCPenney. Learn how to planchar as a little chamaca, ironing papi shirts, pantalones, cada madrugada, ironing her hermanita school clothes, cada dia. No time for studying, no time to be a kid. Learn how to planchar just like her ma. And when Carmen ran across Federally Avenue amidst the droning yellow to the stoplight, she placed her palm on a black leather belt and jogged as if the pinchy cops were chasing her. homebred in East LA. Carmen walked like she owned the calles. This was hers, Arizona Maravillo. Carmen straight down Whittier Boulevard as she headed towards the Golden Gate Theater. She savored Garfield high school memories where she used to neck and make out with Josefina in the back rows, hidden by the darkness. A white beam streamed over them like a rio, splashing a Pedro Infante movie on the screen. Josefina, her main ruca, era mujer, all mujer, firme, nice, smooth curves, strong hips to cradle Carmen's body, her tattered soul back into her whole self, pressing lips, bodies together, savoring chocolate nipples excited her. Yeah, I've had a penis, a real one, not one of those pinchy plastic sheets. I move it in, out, make her beg, for more. I know how to please a mujer, keep my mija satisfied. And she rubbed her pants, remembering high school days where she used to make up with Josefina, where no vato ruca would mess with her, because they knew she kicked ass like any decent vato. On the streets, Carmen earned the reputation of a peleonera. When she was little, everybody knew que era marimacha, porque when Carmen fue, peleó como una pinche loca, con fists, crowbars, patadas y más. And the vato always won the pleitos. Nunca lloró, nunca gritó, solamente grunted y cussed out every vato. Fuck you, puto, chúpame ese. And the guys, Carmen earned the respect of a true vato, a homegirl always down for her barrio. And Carmen was damn proud of her reputation as she strutted down Whittier Boulevard in East LA, remembering La Vida Loca, marimacha style, y que. Thank you for the for the applause. In the silence, I can hear them. I could hear the little click, 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 click taking place there. So I'm going to switch up the tone just a little bit. And I'm going to go to this little poem. I'm just looking at the page number. So this one I wrote actually when I was up in Napa Valley. I was at a conference. It was a Napa Valley Writers Conference where I was at. And I kept on seeing some things. And somebody had shared a story one time, of course, during workshop, and then I thought, oh, I have something there. So this is Wine Country. Dusty plots stamp the ground like the people. 30 lines made of sticks absorb warmth, each field row holding green, purple bundles. The poet strolls past the old barn house. It is all splintered wood, rusty tin roof. She passes over the dry arroyo bed. At the corner of Polk Street in Maine, she sees Mexican men waiting to cross the street themselves, El Rio, as she wonders, do they work the field? In Delano, the UFW called strike against California grapes. Dolores Huerta chanted, "Sí se puede, sí se puede," and the big grape owners label her the Dragon Lady. And Javier, a brown queer boy, worked the lines. Like many Chicanos, he believed in Raza Unida. Like many Chicanos, he became pesticide miss. And Chavez, the son of migrant workers, in a peaceful protest went on a hunger strike, and everyone remembers his name. In downtown, it is a clear distinction like wine between the owners of the vineyards, Merlot, and the workers of the vineyards, smashed uvas. Across from the National Food and Health Store, and the Mexican men wait for the green light, and the poet stares at the men who mirror her. She strolls by, and they lock each other's eyes. The brownness binds them in this country. Halfway across, they nod bueno to each other, and she wonders, do they think she works the fields? I decided I'm going to do something that I've never read before, and it's just a real last minute decision. And we'll see how this works out. It's I do short little essays. Sometimes I don't even know what their length is going to look like and so forth. But I wrote this piece when I was in Toronto, and I lived in Toronto for a few years. And of course, it was a response to something that happened to me. So here it is. OBGYN, the visit, a Butch's experience. Butch's, gynecologist, We never talk about it. It is like men talking about their prostate exam. It is something not discussed. It is the forbidden topic, the taboo. I sat in the doctor's office and I was the only one there, like usual, the only butch dyke sitting in a room full of mujeres, cis mujeres, some at full-term pregnancy, some early term, and then there was me, La Manflora, in foreign country. It felt odd this time. I knew or believed most of the women sitting in the sterile office were straight. This is their space, a dialogue spoken in between whispers between mujeres. The infamous discussion of pills, pap smears, regular exams of down there, the place of whispers, soft tones. I never been part of those discussions. No one had ever spoken about these things to me. Somehow it was always felt that this talk was not a part of my life. I never heard butch women or any other dyke talk about our panoches in that way. My only warning about taking care of my thing was from my mama when I was heading off to San Diego State University to start college. She said, "Hay hombres allí, cuídate." And I nodded my flaco Seagull's hairdo, little brown curls bopping up and down in my mind. I kept hearing, "There will be men, take care of yourself." Now, what did that mean? Of course, I wouldn't let a man touch me. And this is the closest I've ever come to a dialogue about my private area. In fact, even when I started my period, I learned about it from the calles, and my sister, who was only 3 years older than me. Friends in the body or in junior high talked about the other period, the red one, who started, who had it. So one Saturday morning while sitting on the sofa and watching cartoons, I felt a little funny. So I went to the baño, pulled down my chonis down. I called out, "Mama, mama." She came to the bathroom and I whispered that. Much I already learned. I leaned into her, whispered, "I started, mama." And that was it. Everything was hushed and quiet and quick. I got shown what to do, where to hide the fat coat text in the bathroom, roll the thick pad, wrap it in toilet paper, place it in a brown paper bag and stuff it underneath the bathtub, hide it in the crevice, not at the end of the bleeding, throw away the bag where no one, especially your pa or brothers, is looking. And then she made me té de manzanilla to soothe my first cramps. My days of Saturday morning cartoons had changed for good. Only once more before her death did I hear something about my down there area. Be careful, there are men, take care of yourself. Since then, it never occurred to me that any discussion of panocha would be part of my life except for sex and the fun of it. Of course, that is all about proving, boasting one's studness, but nothing about taking care of oneself. I never had any dawning that I'm supposed to see a psychologist. Excuse me, a gynecologist. In my scope, that word is synonymous with straight women. They deal with it. They're the women who will come into those white or pink or blue sterile office because they're the ones having babies, the procreators. I wasn't going to do this. In fact, I had never been with a man. I never kissed a guy. I never had a date with a guy. I never hugged a man. I never had any intimacy with a man. Pregnancy, loss of virginity via your pop cherry by a penis, pregnancy, oh no, these things were not and are not going to happen to me. I had no intention whatsoever of childbearing. I'd rather my partner, if she wanted to have the child, I could not and had no desire to envision pregnancy for myself. It was such an odd image for me. It was like a foreign idea, which is, I don't think it dawns on us to discuss or even to go to see one, a gynecologist. The thought of it is lost to us. It could be because that is not part of our dialogue. Our conversations at home, a bar, a coffee joint are not about that taboo. That one topic is still hidden in dank spaces. I think in private for most of us, they're probably thinking what I was thinking, who even knows how to find one? It is like an inside dialogue among straight mujeres. They share info on who to go to. They share experiences, I think. Maybe femme women or women who can pass for hetero have these discussions that may be a whole other dialogue, but I never have. So I was lost. So when I bled for a month and a half, 6 weeks, I knew I needed to ask my general practitioner doctor for a gynecologist. At 38, that much I knew I needed to do. And when the day came to speak to my doctor, I dreaded it, just the way I loathed my first pap smear exam at the student health center down in El Paso overlooking the Rio Grande. I feared walking into that scene, the nurse practitioner. I stiffened into a palo when she asked about my sexual history. The questions came up, sexual activity, Intercourse, how many? Recently, ever pregnant? Any children? No to every question. Then my admission, the public outing myself, I don't sleep with men. And I saw the look, the fear, the anger, the disgust in her eyes. Her body language changed, and a tight bola grew in my stomach. Part of me wanted to run out of there. I felt I should have left the room. This was not a safe area, but I needed the exam. And with legs parted, exposed by Nocha, she jabbed the clear plastic speculum in me, and I squeezed it out. I was annoyed. She grumbled something, and again she did it, this time in a gruff voice, threatening me not to push it out, take it. And while I did, how the silence screamed. This was the last time I exposed myself to someone in the medical field. So there I was asking my doctor about a specialist. And of course she gave me the name of one and an appointment with her. And I could tell that she presumed that at age 38, I had one back in the States, a gynecologist, but I said nothing, kept quiet, ashamed of my ignorance. So I wonder how many butch women actually go see a gynecologist? How many even think of these things? Sure, butch dykes talk about sex stuff, buying dildos, how many, what size, color, shape, packing, medium softies, stuffing a sock in a jockstrap or regular briefs, Fruit of the Looms, BVDs. We pass on this advice, but I never heard the conversation. Do you have a gynecologist you might recommend? Have you seen your gyno lately? Is she queer friendly? Gynecologists and butchers don't seem to go in the same sentence or thought, but they should. And it should happen in 10 years, just like Planned Parenthood for straight girls getting their first birth control pills. Baby butchers need a dialogue about taking care of, looking after the goods. Theirs is just as important as any other mujer. Well, that was one little piece. So I'm looking at the time, and I know the time is getting a little bit scarce there. So I think I'm going to just take up my time. I have 2 more pieces I'm going to read. And this is the poem. This is Behind the Bleachers, the setup. And Daniel's storytelling about the first time, he says it happened behind the bleachers. Like all gay boys, he wants to belong. He wants them to relive, enjoy a 1980s flick, Fast Times at Belvedere Junior High. After 5th period, Daniel and Duty ditched math class and headed to the bleachers, hiding from those ruffian teachers. And near the gym sock building, reeking jock straps and puberty, Daniel sporting his pompadour, straight cat's t-shirt, Levi's vest, ripped jeans, black dogs leaned in and touched Duty's lips. Oh, he loved the soft, feathery brush of his youthful mustache and all the drama of a gay boy's wet dream. In the real story, it happened behind the library on Mendick, really in the Chicana Resource Center. Between book aisles, their brown eyes caught a glimpse of another tender soul like his own. And like his best friend, Teresa, Daniel was a genuine geek. He was an avid reader. Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret. Judy Bloom all the way. And the library was a place to hang out, to kick it. The reality, 1982, the East LA Library appeared across the pond of ducks, guppies. After school, Daniel came to the bookshelves to linger, do homework. He looked for stories of young men, jotos like him, on the shelves. Mostly he found none and simply dove in the aisles for shelter. One blue Tuesday, he daydreamed, trailing his fingers on binders, glanced up and saw a beautiful young soul gazing at him. And for the first time, Daniel felt safe and he smiled at him, bonito. In his mind, he already named him for who he claimed him to be. And for the first time, Daniel felt his own inner power and shine, like tres flores lingering in the room, knowing un caballero was there. They smiled and exchanged glasses, a hidden knowledge of understanding. How the body, their hidden language, gave them away to each other. Their young guys smiled, found text in themselves near the back shelf. Outside, overlooking the pond, they saw blue, purple orchid twilight. They leaned against a fat tree wrapped in cool spring air. They laughed about playing Pac-Man. They joked about hating PE class. They listened to the Stray Cats on the Sony Walkman. And Daniel proclaimed his desire to be like Brian Setzer. And the young teen boy smiled, his dimple inviting Daniel. And the young teen boy beamed to Daniel, I love your pompadour. and he nudged his upper arm, firm muscle, and Daniel glowed. And Daniel knew this was his chance to know, to capture, to feel. He leaned in, imagined duty, and kissed this beautiful Mexicano. Daniel felt Bonito's teeny mustache, a little peach fuzz. It tickled him. Daniel thought of Pedro Infante, his bigote, how he must feel this way. Inside, he loved the sensation of these soft lips, this tiny bigote, this body. Inside, he felt for the first time. Daniel felt like someone to be loved. And Daniel felt like a stray cat singing, I'm gonna rock this town. He felt the bass thumping inside. He felt the surge of sangre throbbing everywhere in his young body, and he loved it. In Daniel's first real teen boy to boy kiss, he discovered his love for Mexican men like him. So I know that technically I'm out of time right now. So I don't know if you want me to pause or if I could go on and just read another poem, but it's going to take more time. So
you could read one more. I'm down if you're down to read one more. That would be great.
All right. So because I kind of like to read this one. I read it once, and I think it's a nice, good, feel-good poem. It's not Panocha Power. For those who know that piece. But it is super queer. Super queer, theme from Superfly or Push Your Mind by Curtis Mayfield. I'm your mother, I'm your sister, I'm your tia, I'm super queer. I'm your father, I'm your brother, I'm your tío, I'm super queer. I'm everywhere you look, I'm on the streets walking right by you, I'm in the office across from you, I'm in a board meeting in front of you, I'm in the classroom teaching your kids, I'm in the pew in church sitting next to you at Sunday Mass, I'm everywhere you look. No matter how much you deny me, I'm everywhere you look. No matter how much you silence me, I'm everywhere you look. No matter how much you ignore me, yes, street people, I'm everywhere you look. So look around and you see me, super queer, hanging out, kicking back, walking around, sitting at a coffee joint, drinking a beer at a cantina first in Chicago, drinking a limonada on the porch at Ford Boulevard and Humphreys, sipping a margarita on a patio on Silver Lake and Sunset Boulevard, sipping a Kahlua on the street patio at Santa Monica and Christopher. No matter what, straight boys and girls, men and women, no matter what, I'm everywhere you look. I'm in every nook and cranny you look. Because I'm super queer. I survived homophobia. I survived bashing. I survived heterosexism. I survived verbal insults. I survived daily beatings. I survived what you thought no human being can withstand. I'm super queer. Because after all, I'm your ma, I'm your pa. I'm super queer. Because after all, I'm your prima, I'm your sobrina. I'm super queer. Because after all, I'm your primo, I'm your sobrino. I'm super queer. I'm your blood and you are my sangre as well. I'm super queer and I'm everywhere. I'm the president of a company, a college, a university. I'm super queer and I'm everywhere. I'm a dentist, a nurse, a doctor in a hospital. I'm super queer and I'm everywhere. I'm the custodian, a cashier, a lawyer. I'm the professor, a union worker, a colleague. I'm the poet, artist, musician, sculptor. No matter where you look, I'm everywhere. I'm super queer. Accept me, respect me, support me for who I am. I'm super queer. Because no matter what you do, I'm everywhere. I'm your abuela, I'm your abuelo, I'm your bisabuelos. I'm super queer who flies by you on supermarket aisles. I eat at taquerias on Whittier Boulevard, La Primera, and in Centro. I'm standing in line with you at the bank, at the corner store. I'm everywhere you look. I'm super queer. But you just don't want to see me for who I am. Those heterosexist lenses you are wearing blind you. So take them off and see a rainbow world or diverse mundo where shades of yellow, red, black, white, brown. In your vision, our vision, my vision, you'll see there's nothing to fear. I have nothing against you except your illogical fear. Let go of that trans bi homophobia because it's like killing the queers. We've been to way too many funerals, Brandon, Gwen, Larry, beautiful people's lives cut because society said fear, fear, fear. And I'm super queer to say the jotas, jotos, los queer, familia. Because after all, I'm your mother, I'm your father, I'm super queer. Because after all, I'm your nieta, I'm your nieto, I'm super queer. Because after all, I'm your nina, I'm your nino, I'm super queer. And when you look around without fear, hate, anger, and you don't have reason to spy on difference, otherness, because I look just like you and you look just like me. So take off those silly straight lenses that skew your vision and see the queer world for what it really is, for who we really are. We're buena gente, loving people, supportive friends, good people. You'll see that I look, am just like you, and you am just like me. See me for who I am. I'm your sister, I'm your brother, I'm your uncle, I'm your tia, I'm your father, I'm your mother, I'm your comadre, I'm your compadre. I'm super queer, I'm super queer. I'm everywhere you look, I'm there, because I'm here, I'm queer, and I'm here to stay. Because after all, I've always existed in time. This is me, I'm Carlo, I'm Whitney, I'm Ronnie, I'm a Mundito. I'm all the mariconas, las floras, you push to the margins. I'm all the bi gente, the trans familia. You said basta a la torre. You blindly chose to deny my existence, to ignore my presence, but we've always existed. I'm here and queer and we'll always stay. So take off those heterosexist lenses, homophobic view, and accept me for who I am. I'm your sister, I'm your brother, I'm your tia, I'm your tío, I'm your abuelo, I'm your abuela, I'm your father, I'm your mother, I'm your prima, I'm your nieto, I'm your sobrina, I'm your compa, I'm your compadre, I'm your sangre, I'm your familia. I'm super queer, I'm super queer, I'm super queer. Everywhere you look, I'm there, I'm super queer. Thank you.
Woo woo! I was like, unmute. Woo woo! Oh my God. Y'all, Andy, you can unmute too.
Yeah, this was dope. There was that last poem just killed it. Yes.
Oh my goodness. I was like,
Thank
so
you.
yes. It's like pride and just empowerment, but also just like, oh, like, what are you talking about, gente? We're right here with you all the time. I love it. I love it. Oh my gosh. Oh, Veronica. Oh my, I love hearing you read. I love your poetry. Your writing, the essay was incredible too. I mean, you know, you're a creative writer, scholar, you know. let me go to this. You are. Gosh, it just, you tell it, it's not just being honest, but you get all those details, the descriptions. And a lot of folks, when you were reading, they were saying, oh, so descriptive. And I was like, hey, we could like make a movie from your poems because it's so descriptive. And then I think it's like in our minds, we can like see the people that you're writing about and talking about, and we know them, and there's just so much that we can connect with. And which is beautiful that you culminated with super queer, because, you know, queer folks are, we're, you know, brother, sister, human. We're all gente. We're all the earthlings. We're people. We're, you know, and it's just one love, you know, and we're here, and power to you for everything you all have endured.
Power to us. Power to
Overcome. Yeah.
Power to Brianna for being here.
Brianna and Brenda are amazing. They're also amazing poets too in their own right. And everybody that's listening, there's some folks that are watching us on Facebook too. Thank you for joining us. So now the nervous part. I was telling Rosie, I'm like, Rosie, I'm nervous for the Q&A. So I'm just gonna roll this like naturally. And I just want to say to y'all that you know, if you don't like something I'm asking, just say, hey, next question, please. Or, you know, I don't want y'all to be uncomfortable. You know, you're my guest. I appreciate you. I respect you. And I have lots of love for you both. And what you're doing is liberating, you're liberating yourselves, and you're empowering others that are in your shoes too. And also empowering those who are growing and, you know, understanding themselves and the world, and, you know, the transitions, right? We're always evolving, and it's natural, I feel. So let's just take it back. Okay, so I'm gonna throw out a question, and you know, you both can you can both answer it, you know, or whoever wants to answer, just go for it, and we'll see how it works. Hopefully that works out. Here we go. So let's see. Well, first I wanted to say that I totally connected with the essay, Veronica, that you wrote. And not, you know, I think it's incredible too, coming, like you said, hey, it's health, you know, the body has these parts, you got to make sure everything's okay, you got to do the gyno thing, and it's not fun for anybody. Like, who wants to show a stranger everything that's sacred, right? To be like, hey, and so it's so uncomfortable. So I just like snaps for writing about that, but also to come from the point of view of a butch, mujer, because you're not even talking about that, like there's always this front that folks put on. They don't want to get into that nitty gritty. Like, I love what you said. It's like guys talking about prostate exams. So no, hey, you opened that door, and I think that's wonderful, because it's hard to talk about. Like, you see me, I'm stumbling trying to talk about vagina stuff. But it is uncomfortable, and for people to not have respect of your body. You said something so important about it was kind of tongue-in-cheek, like, hey, asking the other dags, hey, who's a good queer friendly gyno? But how important is that, and how much like pressure that would relieve so many, relieve people from, to know that, hey, I'm not going to feel as awkward going into this office because they're queer friendly, or they're just not so invasive, like when you talked about pushing it out, those clamps, and oh my gosh, I know that feeling, that's so painful. And especially, I mean, okay. There was never any penetration in that area before the clamps. Is that right? Because I know that stuff makes you, like, the clamps, they cause you to bleed. You know what I mean? So like, that's like a super violation. Is that what had happened? Or
yeah, so that's a real memoir. I didn't really thought about his memoir, but it is. And I wrote that in Toronto, so I'm thinking maybe 06, something like that, right? And the event that you're talking about happened in El Paso. And yeah, so El Paso, UTEP is literally overlooks the Rio Grande. I mean, when you look up the English department building, and I think they're in the same building, Hutchbip Hall, and I'm surprised I remember this 20 years later, you literally see the colonias in Juarez, Chihuahua. And so the conservativeness of El Paso is really intense, because it's about maintaining the difference between the both Mexicanos on both sides, right? Mm-hmm. So classes used, and of course homophobia and everything. And we're talking like 1998,
the 90s,
something
yeah.
like that, right? So and now I think about it in retrospect, I'm like, wow, I can't believe I would walk on that campus or lived in El Paso, and I would be wearing little rainbow necklaces and not even thinking my life was at stake. Because it was in some ways. So yeah, there was a violation there, because I had another little thing that was occurring, which I'm not going to give details of that, that I needed to have that exam. And the nurse practitioner was an asshole, right? The moment I said that it was a dyke, really, right? And I was trying to avoid it as much as I could, but you can't really avoid the question when you're in the scenario like that. And so it was a real form of violation. And I just sucked it up the second time, right?
Yeah, that's horrible. That is a violation, your human rights and your body, just like that. I mean, that's force, like, for, you would think health practitioners would be gentle with anybody that they're seeing,
Not in the 1990s.
Not in
even now, right? So not really, you think, but if you don't look the way they perceive or think of females supposed to look like, then you're going to get mistreated. You're gonna get the coldness of it.
Wow, that's true. Dang. I had wanted to also mention, because in that piece that you mentioned, that essay, you also talk about being butch and not thinking, like, ever imagining yourself carrying a child, or seeing your body in that way, which can be, I guess, I don't know, hyper feminized, to be a pregnant, woman. That's so, and had you met anybody that is butch that had gone through to try to be a mom and do that?
Yeah, because you have to remember the piece was written in early 2000s. So I think that Shri Moraga's book, right, Waiting in the Wings, might have been already published at that time. But personally, yeah, I knew a couple people afterwards who had kids, right? But it was not a dialogue that I noticed that people had. And I think that's probably why you're leaning towards it too, right? Because it's not a dialogue that really gets spoken about. And probably because it's not really a new piece, but it's a new in the sense that I've never read it aloud. And I can't believe I know that this is being recorded.
No, this is, honestly, it's so empowering. And I think it totally bridges the gap. It just, just our natural bodies, right? If we're still, you have your vagina, like you still got to go get those checkups. If you still have your breasts, you still got to get those checkups. It's just like anything that we would have to do to make sure that we're healthy, right? Because we don't, so I think it's like it bridges gaps between, heteros and too, folks that are not queer, to be like, hey, this, yeah, my brothers, sisters, everybody needs to make sure that they're healthy. And this is normal, right? It's totally normal. Those binaries are what throws stuff off. And also the reason I asked that too of you, because I found it so fascinating that you wrote about that. Because I actually do know a gal personally, she's butch, she's been in a relationship, got married, oh God, I don't know, like let's say 3 years ago or so. And she was a friend of a friend. And she would, so she definitely wasn't the femme in the relationship. And her partner got pregnant, but together they decide that her partner would carry the baby and all that, right? And also I wanted to just say that this friend I knew when she was, like up to when she was like 19 years old, and now I think she's probably in her 30s. So I just wanted to share that. So her partner had carried a baby to term. She had the baby, and then their child together and everything. And 2 years later, my friend, the butch gal, she carried a baby. She's like, I want to experience pregnancy. So I was like, because you're like, it doesn't seem to happen often, right? Like that the butch, like a butch gal would want to, carry a baby, or would see themselves, I guess, like kind of what you were saying, because because of that the femininity, I suppose, or but so I was so taken that she did that, because wow, I feel like when when you know who you are and wherever spectrum you're at, and on gender, or there's a certain way that you and how you see your life going, I suppose, or just, and so I was just so surprised that she did that. But I was also proud of her, that she would allow her body to carry, and then like they're not like, and this is just based on one individual person that I know, like I'm just like, wow, because she's so butch, I'm like, it just like blew me away. So that's why I was like, wow, that's kind of like what you're writing about. And but kind of like opposite of it, but a little bit, just because but I was like, wow, it was just so I think it's more of an activism to be butch and to be pregnant. I don't know, like to see that, because it's kind of breaking.
Well, maybe because it's breaking the whole stereotypes problem.
Yeah.
I think if I can jump in a little bit,
please.
I think I can also, the same thing for trans folks, right? We're starting to see a lot of, trans folks that are also opting for going through pregnancy if their partners aren't able to, or if their partners wish not to, right? They go through that process too. And going back a little bit to the conversation about medical providers, so I work in the healthcare field. And I've both been in, working directly with patients. My last, job that I had working directly with patients was working with HIV positive folks, mostly Black and brown trans folks, particularly trans women. And so, like a lot of the times providers don't know what questions to ask. A lot of the times there are a lot of assumptions that are had once people see you in person, right? Once your provider sees you in person, and I've struggled myself looking for providers that are able to understand me and understand my body, my sexuality, and are asking the right questions when I walk through the door, right? And not just assume, right? There's a lot of assumptions around like what types of partners I'm with because of the way that I present. And it's like, no, you have to be thorough, right? Even if you don't know, you still have to ask. And that's how you provide holistic medical care to people, right? And not just making assumptions based off of how one looks or what our body parts are. And so I've struggled with a lot of that in the last few years after I came out as trans. And I lost a really great doctor who was like just amazing and took the time to understand me. And so, you know, we see that still today, right? So even with Veronica mentioning, you know, this happened back in like the 80s, 90s, you know, it's still happening now. And, you know, and part of the stuff that I do now is training folks that are going into the healthcare field, particularly social workers and public health, masters in public health folks. And part of the trainings that we provide monthly, I try to bring in a lot of the discussions around what queer healthcare looks like. What does it holistically look like, so that when they go out into the healthcare field, right, and get employment, that they're treating people with respect and dignity, and really understanding, you know, where folks are coming from. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, and I think that's a man. And for me, okay, I'm bisexual, but I'm married to a man, so basically I'm living my life as almost like, you know, like I was talking to Juan about it, and that's cool that he's, you know, that he's accepting of who I am and all my, like I have a very, I believe in the energies. Actually, I feel more two-spirit actually than bisexual, but I know I have a lot of more, I guess, masculine energy in me. And I feel with him, his counter, he has a like, I feel it. Oh my God, you can totally feel it. He has like more feminine energy than me. So in a way, we're balanced, and we're in the bodies we're in, but you know, and and we're fine. We're in a harmony. But it is, you know, it is difficult, and I'm like, I don't feel comfortable going into those providers, you know, looking at the goods and stuff. But gosh, you know, I appreciate you both telling, like I had not been, I didn't know like how difficult or pause to really listen and absorb how difficult it is for you know, queer folks to go into medical providers. So I really appreciate y'all sharing this and with all the people. And that's why also, you know, that's why these discussions are important. I wanted to have Q&A with you, and I'm like this, I'm like, you know, because I respect you and I admire you both so much as writers and just as fierce, you know, voices. And you know, y'all know how I feel about you. Sometimes it's hard to like just kind of wrap up what I'm trying to say and make it a concise, you know, nugget or something that I wanted to say. But yeah, damn, that's messed up. That is so messed up that there isn't the same respect to, you know, to people, you know, because medical providers are supposed to, right? They're supposed to be like, hey, non-biased, whoever comes in, I'm here to help a human life. I'm here to help, you know, that they're healthcare workers. So definitely, Andy, what are some of the best like resources for folks, or is there a website or something that has, you know, queer friendly medical providers or medical resources or things like that, and I can share?
I wish there was like one site where you could find all of this. There are, so part of out of this stuff that I do with my work professionally, I also serve on the board of Trans Lifeline, and I think Trans Lifeline is a really good space to look for a lot of different resources. So it's an organization that's all across the country. At some point, it's probably going to go international. They're working on making that organization extend outside of the United States. But there are a lot of different things that have to come into play for that to happen. And it's a central place to look for a lot of different resources, whether it's medical, whether it's mental health, and it's and they serve all of the U.S., so they provide resources all across the board. So the Trans Lifeline isn't just for crisis. Like if you're in the middle of crisis, it's also a way to find resources, either like you're coming out, you want your family to have resources. So they do a lot of these different things for the entire family, not just for the person that may be in crisis or in need of resources. So that's a central point to kind of find. And then, I mean, within LA County, there are a lot of different health resources that you can find, both more focused on like teen health. So I used to work for Children's Hospital, and Children's Hospital has has the largest trans medical care facility for young folks, and that's in the world. So they, the last time, well, I stopped working there a few years ago, but when I was there, I think they were up to over 1,000 trans patients that they were seeing there, ages from as young as, 2-3 years old, all the way up to 21. So they see a wide range of folks. And they had over 1,000 something patients when I left. So I'm assuming they have a lot more now. And they're all also a really great resource and to kind of tap into for younger folks. For older folks, there's a variety of different small clinics throughout LA County that you can access, and it's just a matter of like searching for trans care. St. John's is one of the clinics that has a lot of trans programs or LGBTQ programs for healthcare. Trans Latina Coalition. So there's quite a few
I love
that you can tap into. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'll share all the links to the websites and the hospitals and stuff. I'll put, for anybody tuning in on Facebook, I'll put them on the on our live stream comments. And thank you. That's so important. And I work for LAUSD. I'm a teacher. Well, I'm a sub, but since COVID, I've been like full-time teacher, and basically I'm the teacher. And so it feels really great. Also to work with the high school students and just to impact youth at all. And I also teach poetry through California Poets in the schools too. But one of the reason I bring that up is like one of the, well, we're taught lots of professional development, and we have these different meetings where we're taught different social, I don't know if you heard the SEL, socio-emotional learning. And it's basically like sensitivity, right? It's sensitivity, and it's things that a lot of it comes, it doesn't all come from it, but to me, it resembles a lot of indigenous practice, sitting together, checking in with your feelings, talking about, checking in, having no authority, but being all equal, like that kind of relationship with the students. But in the socio-emotional, you're working with heart, you're working with emotion, and being there for the youth. And this is a new, I think since COVID actually, but the pandemic really kind of like made it kicked it into high gear, this type of teaching, right? Teaching. And for me, it's just, being there for the kids, because I'm like, that's kind of how I am anyway. But to see that the district put it into practice and have all their seasoned teachers doing it, I was like very, very excited and surprised. Surprised in a good way though. I think it's so important. And one of the things they shared was for trans youth, that there is a stat about trans youth that because I believe it's trans youth have like the highest suicide rates, I believe, among youth. That for those that do make it, they make it because there was at least one adult there for them that said, "You're okay. There's nothing wrong. You're beautiful. You're perfect. Or I'm here for you." Just one adult for one kid, it saves their life. It saves their life. And I was just like, heartbroken, but also thinking like, damn, we all got to step up. We all got to step up. And so I wanted to ask you y'all's was there someone there for you when you, well, I guess maybe like, when did you know, hey, you know, I'm not in this box. I'm not in this, the hetero or the binaries, right? And you know, maybe what age, if you're comfortable to answer that, but was there someone there for you?
Like coming out right now.
Oh. Well, it's just to just put it out there, like, if there was someone that, or if were you navigating it all solo, you know, so question that, yeah, throwing it out there.
Veronica, do you want to go? I'm happy to go first if you'd like.
I'm like, oh man. Yeah, I'll go.
Or you don't have to do age.
I think there's a
you're
difference in
comfortable with.
nature between Andres and I, so we have different time periods of, because I was a kid in the 70s, so that's very different. So
Harder,
the idea of having that adult wouldn't have been there, really, not for me.
Yeah.
But in the sense of like knowing that you're a little different, probably for me when you're a tomboy, right? And then when you get to that transition of puberty, and then your family realizes that you're not coming out of being a tomboy, that becomes like, that's like a permanent state. That would be it. But that's 1980s for me. And of course, we're talking. And then I had other things that were happening within my family. My mom was ill and so forth. So, so there was witness of AIDS and so forth in that time period, but there was not really an adult whatsoever. I started writing a piece last year called Embodiment, a brown marimacha's experience. And in that particular piece, that's one of the things I talk about is that my 10 years didn't have the gay straight alliance type of deal. So that didn't really exist, really. It wasn't really, I'm not going to say that it was actually. There wasn't really anyone there. And even when I was at Cal State Long Beach, there was the Women's Resource Center, but that seemed to be really controlled or fueled by straight mujeres and
The cis,
mainly white people. And then at the Gay and Lesbian Center, and there was, I think it was called Gay, Lesbian, Bisexual Resource Center. They pretty much were all white. So it was like not really belonging. One was too straight and one is like too white. And so you just kind of navigated. So I didn't have that. And I'm not somebody who went to bars or anything like that. So when people talk about the bar scene, that wasn't necessarily my thing. Poetry readings, I mean, but not the other deal. So yes, I'm gonna say no, I didn't really have that. I eventually was making friends and so forth, but not the way you're asking. No.
Yeah. No, I can understand that. I feel like each generation, like the fight, it gets, the youth get powerful and powerful and powerful. And here we are, we're all grown up, right? So I feel like maybe each generation, it might be a little bit easier, more and more understanding. But yeah, go ahead, Andres.
Yeah. So for me, I grew up in the 90s. This was like prime, like my prime years there of like being a teenager and then going into college in the early 2000s. And so for me, I think like I was always really, that was during the time of like we started to possibly see like more visibility with maybe more of like the gay and like lesbian crowd. Because you had three options at that time. You were either a gay, a lesbian, or bi, right? Like that was it. There are nothing else to identify as. And then, like trans folks around that time, right? So the first time that I ever knew about a trans masculine person was when Brandon Tina was murdered. This happened, I think, in the maybe mid to late 90s or something like that. Yeah. And so, I remember watching the film that they made about his story and, watched all these interviews, and I'm like, I'm not even ready for all of this, right? I identified as lesbian for a long time. I identified as bi for a while. And I already knew that I was trans from very early on. But I think like seeing those experiences play out in you know, in the news and the media just really scared me to come out. And I didn't know any trans people at that time. And so one of the first people that I came out to when I came out the first time was actually my college professor. She's like this queer, badass Latina who still teaches at community college in Nevada. And that's the other thing. And I grew up in Las Vegas, which is like entertainment, you know, for like all the drag shows and all this stuff, but you got to keep that on the strip. That does not exist outside of the strip, right? That's entertainment purely for people, for tourists to come and watch and then move on with their lives. And so aside of that, I feel like, you know, it was a very, up until I think President Obama was elected, it was a red state. And so it was always conservative. I didn't feel comfortable coming out on my job. I didn't come out until like later on. I think I was maybe, so I came out to my family when I was in my mid 20s. And to my friends, I came out a little bit earlier. And so I think I was like 20 or 21. And so, yeah, just kind of seeing all these things play out and, you know, just kind of like all of the stuff in the media and the negative talk about like trans folks or just the LGBTQ community in general, it made it really hard for me to come out at that time. But a professor, like, she was probably like my lifeline. And it just happened that I was taking an English lit class with her. And then I wanted to, that's when a lot of the poetry stuff started happening for me, when I was like, she was also teaching a poetry class. And I was like, I want to take your class next year. And then I would always go and like, you know, do like office hours with her after we'd written assignments. And so we just kind of like, I got really comfortable. And one day I was like, I need to tell you something. And I came out to her. She was like the other one adult that I came out to. And if it was, she made it a very safe space for me and kind of guided me through the whole process of like socializing, right? So like she invited me to come out for Pride. It was my first Pride out in Vegas and it felt so awkward. Like I felt so awkward being there. I'm like, who's around? Who's gonna see me? And I was like, it's just other queer folks. Just like other queer folks who don't care that I'm out, right? Wow. Yeah. And so just navigating all of those spaces was like really hard for me. And then eventually I was just like, you know what, I have to live my life. Like, you know, people are gonna talk regardless, and I just need to be my authentic self. And you know, it took some further steps to eventually get to the authenticity of who I am, but yeah. I'm here.
Yeah, and your book, like it's like documenting all the, like a lot of that. It's hard. I can imagine. I mean, well, it is hard. It's because of those binaries, those boxes. They want to label everyone, the society. And one of the questions that I had too was, you know, breaking the binary. So now, you know, Pride is all folks. You know, it's in LGBT. So lesbian, bisexual, trans, gay, and then there's the non-binary, non-gender conformings, like all that, right? So so if there was not this binary, like you either got to be, you know, the boy or the girl or the male or the female, or like, you know, straight or gay or whatever, like would it be easier just to be a trans person from the get-go? Like, is it helping? Do you see that where we are now? I mean, because now we're you know, we're the adults of the society now collectively, and you know, we have a part to play. So I guess, okay, here's the question. So let's talk about, do you feel that the activism that's happened around, you know, queer rights, queer activism has helped to make it a lot safer for, you know, trans and all, you know, gender non-conforming folks to come out and be their authentic selves, you know, as you said? Is that helping? And then also, can you talk about your own personal activism? And I know poetry and writing is activism too. So so what do you think about that, about like where we are as far as, you know, breaking the binaries, and does that make it easier to be trans now because of that? And this is to both of you, and then also to, you know, your activism. What, you know, can you talk about that, your activism as a queer writer, queer poet?
All right, so I think it's definitely gotten easier. I feel like we're starting to see, or I'm not gonna say we. I'm gonna speak from I, right? My perspective is that I am starting to see a lot more visibility of trans folks, queer folks. This is across the board in the media, right? In films, there's a lot more films and things available on social media for folks to access. As you know, maybe before we didn't have these platforms, so it wasn't as accessible for folks to be able to look into these things. So I think that has shifted quite a bit. I think while social media sometimes is a pain in the butt, it's also a great place to find resources, and I think it's made it easier for younger folks. And I'll tell a short story of how why I just finally decided to come out as trans. Is I was translating for a family when I was still working at Children's. The person that worked in that I didn't work for the trans program. I worked for the HIV program, but often our programs would overlap in terms of the clients, right? And so I had to translate that day for a client that was coming in for their first consult to get trans care, and it was this young guy, I think like 14 or 15, who wanted to start taking hormones, Latinx family, and so the parents didn't want him to, and they still kept on calling him by his birth name, and they kept using female pronouns. And we had to have this conversation with the parents, and I had to translate through all of it. I watched the parents really have a hard time around, like, how do I start calling my child a different name and different pronouns, right? And so they both like broke down, and they were like, and I think it was that moment when I saw the parents struggle that I realized why I was so hesitant to come out, that I was scared how this would impact my own family, and also like how I would have this conversation with first generation Latino folks that don't understand what it is to be trans, and we don't talk about sexuality, right? And so I feel like now, yeah, the visibility, we have a lot of, and not just to focus on like the media and the shows, but I think living in LA has really opened up for me, like a wide range of different folks that I did not ever have access to in other places I lived. It's very open. People are very chill about, like, even asking like, what are your pronouns? I remember the first time that I was asked that. I'd never been asked until I moved here. And I was like, what do you mean? Right? Like, what do you mean by that? And I was so thrown back, I didn't know what to say. And then I was like in my mind, it just went like 100 miles an hour, right? Because I was already feeling like I wanted to transition. And then people were asking me my pronouns. Like, I don't know what my pronouns are, and to, so people are very mindful, right? Even spaces like, poetry readings, I try to make, when I have trainings for my students, right, for it to feel inclusive, for it to feel like we're having a discussion where everybody can openly share and not hold back on their own process journey when they're having these discussions. I think in those spaces, even within my own job now, right, we're having a lot more discussions of what this looks like. And these conversations particularly came about after the uprising last year, right? Of how we're treating each other, how we're giving each other space as folks of color working in an organization that's led by white folks. And so I think, I think the space is there. I don't know that we are, we're probably getting over a huge hump. And I think there's still a lot of work that needs to be done, but I think we're heading in the right direction.
Thank you.
Yeah. I guess I'm going to say from the perspective of, because of age, and I could see differences. I think that it's I guess we're moving somewhere there, Jessica. The movement is minuscule. I'm not sure if it's as humongous as, I think it feels humongous for us, but the actual movement is still minuscule, and there needs to be so much more. And that would be something as simple as, using a restroom, right? I teach at a public university, and there's only a few general neutral restrooms. And one of the things that when I was teaching WGSS, I would tell my students, you know, we should do this like performance piece where literally we go into all the men restrooms and like break those urinals. So they have to learn how to hold it because they've never held it. Because it's not in them to think that it's a big deal. What's the big deal that why do you have to like worry about this? And I say that because, you know, it's just a basic necessity, and it's a necessity that's not even respected whatsoever. You look at a women's restroom line, and the line is humongous, and there's only 10 minutes between classes when we were physically on campus, you know, so we're looking at a couple of years ago, but it's been like that forever anyways. And it'll probably still be the same when we get back. You look at the men's restroom and there's no line, they're in and out, right? Because it's also treatment of how their body, of how they've been taught to treat their body and so forth, which is a disconnect really in the end. So when we talk about the 90s, yes, I mean, I think a few key names come into play. And of course, it's always though deaf related, you know, like Brandon Tina, Matthew Shepard. It's not necessarily done in a positive light. And when we did hear of Lauren Cameron, the photographer, or Les Feinberg with Trans, their first book, and it's a different perception than now. And I just think that it's so, there's movement, but the movement isn't enough. And there needs to be more. And even within the queer community, there needs to be more movement within there. Because when you have images of pride, actually there was a little meme going around, you see all these gay boys in the float, it's an iceberg, and then everybody beneath the iceberg is everyone that does not fit the image of the white gay boys, and we're all drowning underneath there, right? Different bodies, many genders and so forth, and it's that one specific image of who's on the gay boy float. Yet, I remember going to Pride, I think it was 2019, and I was like, wow. We're talking about the LA one. I was like, whoa, it's not all white anymore. It's actually diverse. And I was really surprised that it wasn't all white, because it was all white in the 90s. And it was probably all white in the early 2000s. And it felt open, but it also felt too like, there's allies, but then it's like the allies want to be in the spotlight because they're enjoying the party. And they're not really respecting the sense of, this is really because there's individuals who are coming out and are proud for living this life. And so it's kind of like this back and forth type of deal. In terms of activism, writing is a form of activism. Teaching is a form of activism. I even just enlightening them, students. When George Floyd had been murdered, the Academy of American Poets was, they usually have a poem a day. And so it's diverse. It's not diverse, let me change that. They have a guest poet, and the poet chooses who they want to highlight and so forth from Monday to Friday. But after George Floyd, it became all focused on African Americans. And right in the last 2 weeks of August, they went back to their old program. And I was like, do you think celebrity fight over the summer? Like, okay, we're all good now. Like society. I said, no. And that supposedly is an open forum there that supports, right? And if you have these institutions also finally saying, okay, we're going to be more inclusive, what does that really say? You have been exclusive before, and you have been shutting the doors out on everyone beforehand, right? So, yeah, I think that there is movement, but it's movement that's very slow. And yet, I do see differences between the past and now. So coming back to education, yeah, it becomes this moment where you actually share that information with students, and hopefully they share it forward, but at least it sparks something in them, right? And usually, but by the way, you know, if you are what people perceive to be queer and you walk into and your image, that already changed it, right? There's already a sense of, the moment I come into a classroom, students are like, you know, the ones who are queer, they're like, their little eyes light up. They're like, you know, they know. So that is a form of political activism. And then of course, what other people always sometimes I think of when we think of activism, being on the streets and so forth, or phone banking, however it is you're gonna do. But yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Sorry, I love that you said that teaching is a form of activism, and definitely, I definitely removing that veil, letting folks know it's okay, or like just, you know, that's all. Sometimes all we need is that someone else to say something for it to, you know, to be feel validated or to feel heard, or, you know, to be like, yeah, okay, I was thinking that, but you said it first, and yes, I agree, you know. So definitely, I love that. And I think Andres was gonna also answer that question about the activism.
Yeah, I just read in the chat, it was, you know, teaching. I think, so this was my first year teaching for CLI, and I had quite a few folks that identified as queer in class as well. And so, you know, just the representation, you know, it really comes down to that representation. I'm doing it through my work in writing and sharing part of my story, you know, because there's still a lot of stuff to write, a lot of experiences to put on paper and share, you know, to make it validating for other folks to also come forward and share their stories too. So those have been the two things, you know, and I tried to do that, you know, in little ways or small ways within the work that I'm doing, like I mentioned, you know, with the folks that I'm leading as part of my full-time job, which is in healthcare. And so really talking to folks, providing trainings, education around what it's like, what it should be like to work with trans folks and trans folks, queer folks, you know, the spectrum, and validating folks for, you know, where they are in life. So those are the small ways that I also, you know, do some activism.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Definitely. I feel also, I love that you work in healthcare and that you're in that realm too, like, you know, either mental health or social work. Like, it's so important to see, and like back to Veronica's poem, like, I'm everywhere, I'm your brother, I'm your mother, I'm your sister, just because by being who you are, you're already empowering people, you know, people that you might not even get to speak to, but, and it takes courage. It takes so much courage. And I know that it's been such a journey because of this, the system of oppression of, oh my gosh, of people being free to be who they are. In terms of their gender, but also, you know, in our work and what we get to do with our lives and how we can live and where we get to live and all that. Like, it's also controlled. And you know, I definitely like love and applaud that your true selves and your freedom, because sharing your story is so empowering, and being who you are and walking, you know, with pride and being present anywhere you go, like, is, you know, being who you are is already activism, I feel, y'all. You know, walk the walk and talk the talk, you know. Veronica throw the book at you, Andres throw the book at you, be like, here, you want you want to learn some more here. But I love it. And you know, all that is definitely activism, and hearing each other's stories, I feel definitely breaks down so many barriers or misconceptions, you know, that we have of each other. So it's important, and y'all are writers, you're documenting it, that's why your work is so important. And, you know, and also you're immortal as artists. I always tell my students, I'm like, hey, y'all know William Shakespeare? And they're like, yeah, we read Shakespeare. I'm like, well, when was he born? Do y'all know when he was alive? Was he like, y'all know him personally? What? And they're like, no. They're like 1800. I'm like, try like 1600. You know, try. Or Veronica, was it in the 16 or 15? You might correct me. I know you're an English comp teacher, but you know, that was a long time ago. I'm like, how do we still know Shakespeare? He's an immortal. Edgar Allan Poe, immortal. Audre Lorde, immortal. James Baldwin, immortal. You know. So it's so important that y'all, you know, continue your beautiful art, your work, and sharing. And gosh, you know, like I said, I have so much love. I just want to share something personal myself, and we'll wrap it up. We'll have one more question or a comment. And then, because I know we're going on about almost hitting 2 hours, so I'll leave you to the rest of your Sunday. But I remember in middle school, and I guess, you know, that's when it all happens, when puberty strikes, you know, then everything just starts sprouting. And I remember dreaming about kissing a girl in my class. And I'm like, why am I dreaming about kissing this girl? And it wasn't even a girl that I thought was cute or anything. It was just, I kissed this girl in my class. And I remember telling my dad about it because I was blessed to actually have a parent like in my life that cared about me and was, you know, that was a parent to me, was there, and a friend. So I had a very open dialogue with my father. But I remember asking him that or telling him, like, Dad, you know, I'm tripping. Like, I had this dream, I kissed a girl. And he was like, oh, it's all right. Yeah. He's like, he just took it. And I wasn't like, I was more like innocent. I was like, why did I kiss this girl? You know, but my dad took it straight to like, it's okay if you like to kiss a girl, you know, you're fine. You know, you're fine with me. You know, I love you if you want to, you know, or if you don't. And I'm like, okay, but why was I kissing this girl in my class? Like, I don't even like her. Like, you know, but the fact that my dad had told me that, like, had always stuck with me, like, to have, you know, that it's like, damn, if I really wanted to, you know, like, I had at least someone's support, you know, or he laid it out as being supportive. And fast forwarding to, you know, being an adult, like, I'm thinking, like, because I've always been on the border of it, but I hadn't been like, I'm out, you know, I'm bi, or, you know, and sometimes I'm like, nah, maybe not, or, you know, yeah, but it's love, and love is love, you know, and I don't really like the label myself, you know, I was just going with what I was feeling with the person, but I'm like, but there was someone really special, a girl that you know, we were in love, and I was like, dang, and it was like, no, this is my girl, you know, I want to just be with her forever. And like, none of that, like, I get disgusted by people who are like trying to be voyeurs, you know, in relationships, and it's like, no, respect my relationship, like I would respect anybody's relationship, you know, it's not like a freaking sideshow. And but then I would, you know, so I was like, you know, do I come out? Do I want to say, because it's so liberating, you know? But I got scared. I got so scared because I was like thinking of all the pressure that comes along. And that's why you know, when I tell you I'm so proud of you because you're so strong, like, you're the strength that I couldn't be. I was thinking of like the domino effect, right? Like Andres, you're saying, first you start with your friends. That's easy. Your friends got your back. They love you. You know, most friends are pretty if you find out they're not, you're like, oh, I don't need you, you know? But it's like, then you're like, well, okay, the friends I can get through, but the family, and then the labels. It's the labels where I was like, I don't want that. I don't want to feel persecuted. So damn, you know, it takes a lot of strength. And I feel like each decade, definitely, well, not even decade, but each year I feel gets a little bit better and better for true queer liberation and queer rights, and, you know, like, people just be who they are. And so I'm really glad that is happening, and that I'm able to see that, and that, you know, to be in this space with you together, and for it to echo beyond the moment, that we're able to be out and sharing and you know, being who we are, right? I think that's so important, because you don't know who's going to connect, who's going to need this moment, you know? And so I wanted to share that with you. but thank you so much. Oh my goodness. So let's see, we talked about breaking the binaries. Oh, and I did talk about the first step. I'm sorry, I don't want to put you like, hey, your coming out story. It was just more like, it was someone there, you know. I know it is hard. It's hard, especially Latinx families, right? It's so macho. It's so like, first there's the macho and the Catholicism and everything that's just like, oh my God, like you say, we don't talk about sexuality, and that is already like messing up, even if they're gonna be hetero kids, whatever, right? Like, be open. It's your body. It's not disgusting. Like you were born. So guess what? The parents had to copulate for you to be, you know what I mean? Like, come on, it's just, it's so, yeah. It's ridiculous. And I'm glad, conversations need to be had. We're humans.
Right.
Oy, oy. So, well,
We've had a good conversation.
Yes.
it was, yes. I thank you for listening, for being here with me, and for giving I'm here by myself with my toddlers, and I'm like, I put a movie on and they'll leave me alone. Sorry that, yeah. I was like, and then he's like, I want a snack. I'm like, really? So that's why I was walking over there. But I have nothing but love for y'all. I hope you saw a bajillion books and you're on your way to immortality. For sure, yeah. I mean, you are. Veronica, you're already an immortal, because I've been teaching your book, Chopper, for like a good while now. So, and it's just as good as the first time.
I'm not sure I'm immortal, but thanks.
Yeah, you are one of the immortals. You are. And yeah, I'm always a fan. And any way that I can support you, or LA Poet Society can support you, we're here for you. We have a new shop and a bookshop on our website. We could have your book in there, where we can help you sell your book. And so if you want to do that, it's something that we can do too. Also, oh yeah, Veronica, we have a new zine. We have a new literary journal called Acid Verse. And the first volume came out in January. It's called Queer Uprising, and Andres is in there. But it's I gotta give you the link here. But also, I would love to send you a copy. So I'm gonna get your address after. I'll email you, and I'm gonna give you a copy of Acid Verse, Queer Uprising, to celebrate Pride with you even more.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to say that it was a pleasure reading with Andres and having this conversation with you, Jessica. So thank you for the invite.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation. I think, just very open and candid. I appreciated it. It's topics that we need to discuss in our community. So thank you for the invite.
Thank you. Thank you for educating me too. I got to push even further and further, and just let me know how I can continue to be, help you. And especially, I know for trans, we got to push even harder, to break those misconceptions. And I'm here for you. And thank you for being here. Happy Pride. Lots of love. Thank you for joining the LA Poet Society. And
happy Pride.
Yes. And I'll see you both again soon. Thank you so much.
All right.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.